AITA for leaving the family group chat after my name appeared in court documents? I was standing in line at the DMV when my phone started blowing up. Not the usual family group chat banter about whose turn it was to host Thanksgiving or my mother's forwarded articles about meal prep. This was different. 32 messages in 4 minutes. I pulled out my phone and saw my brother Dylan's message at the top. "You need to explain yourself right now." My stomach dropped before I even opened the thread. Below that, my sister Olivia had written, "I can't believe you'd do this to her." Do what to who? I scrolled up, past the accusations and the disappointment and the demands for answers, until I found what had started it all. My cousin Nathan had sent a photo. It took me 3 seconds to recognize the header, Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles. It took me 5 more to see my own name listed as the respondent in a domestic violence restraining order. The petitioner was someone named Ashley Whitmore. I'd never heard that name in my entire life. The woman ahead of me in line moved forward, and the DMV worker called, "Next," but I couldn't move. My hands had gone numb around my phone. The court document in the photo showed a case number, a date from 3 weeks ago, and a hearing scheduled for next month. According to the petition, I had been harassing Ashley Whitmore for 6 months. There were allegations of threatening phone calls, showing up at her workplace, refusing to accept that our relationship was over. The document listed my address, my phone number, my date of birth. Everything was correct, except the part where I had absolutely no idea who this woman was, or why my name was on legal documents claiming I'd terrorized her. I read it twice, then 3 times, waiting for it to make sense. The accusations were specific: dates, times, descriptions of incidents. October 3rd at 11:30 p.m., I had allegedly called her 18 times. November 15th, I had supposedly followed her home from work. December 2nd, I had shown up at her apartment building and refused to leave until security removed me. I could prove where I was on every single one of those dates because I'm obsessive about my calendar, but that didn't explain why someone had filed court documents with my name attached to crimes I didn't commit. The group chat kept flooding my phone. My mother had joined in. "How could you not tell us about this? We're your family." My father's message was shorter. "Call me. Now." I stepped out of line and walked toward the parking lot, my legs operating on autopilot while my brain tried to process what I was looking at. Dylan sent another message. "Dad's lawyer friend saw this at the courthouse. Said you're lucky you didn't get arrested." That stopped me cold. I leaned against my car and called Dylan directly. He answered on the first ring. "What the hell is going on?" His voice was sharp, accusatory. "I have no idea," I said. "I don't know anyone named Ashley Whitmore. I've never harassed anyone. I don't know why my name is on that document." There was a long pause. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. Dylan, I'm looking at this for the first time right now, same as you. This is identity theft or fraud or something, but it's not real." Another pause. "Mom and Dad want you to come over tonight. They want to talk about this in person." I could hear the skepticism in his voice, the way he was choosing his words carefully. He didn't believe me. My own brother thought I was lying. I told Dylan I'd be there at 7 and hung up. Then I took a screenshot of the court document from the group chat and sent it to myself so I could zoom in on the details. The case number was real. The court stamp looked legitimate. The judge's signature appeared authentic. Someone had gone through significant effort to make this look official, and they'd succeeded. I pulled up the Superior Court's website on my phone and searched for the case number. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The search loaded slowly, the spinning wheel on my screen matching the spinning feeling in my chest. Then the results appeared. The case was real, listed in the public records database. Restraining order petition filed by Ashley Whitmore against me, with a hearing date scheduled for January 18th. I had 16 days to figure out what was happening before I was supposed to appear in court to defend myself against accusations I knew nothing about. I sat in my car in the DMV parking lot for 20 minutes, just staring at my phone, trying to understand how my life had been hijacked by someone I'd never met. I spent the drive to my parents' house that evening mentally cataloging every detail I knew about myself, trying to find some connection to Ashley Whitmore that I'd somehow forgotten. I'd had 3 serious relationships in the past 5 years, none of them named Ashley. I'd dated casually a handful of times through apps, but I kept meticulous records in my phone and email, and there was no Ashley anywhere. I'd never been in trouble with the law, never been accused of anything remotely like harassment, never even gotten a speeding ticket. I was a software developer for a cybersecurity firm, the kind of job where background checks were routine and any criminal record would end my career. I coached youth soccer on weekends. I volunteered at a food bank once a month. The idea that I could be listed in court documents as a domestic abuser was so fundamentally incompatible with who I was that it felt like reading about a stranger. But it wasn't a stranger's name on those documents. It was mine. And somehow, I had to prove that someone had stolen my identity to commit fraud before my entire family decided I was a liar and an abuser. My parents' house looked the same as always when I pulled up. The same brick facade, the same oak tree in the front yard, the same porch light my father had installed when I was 12. But walking up to the front door felt different, like I was approaching enemy territory instead of home. I could see movement through the living room window, multiple silhouettes. They'd assembled the whole family. Dylan's car was in the driveway. Olivia's SUV was parked on the street. Even Nathan's motorcycle was there, which meant my aunt and uncle had probably sent him as their representative. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key. It felt appropriate, given the circumstances. My mother answered. Her face was tight, her eyes red like she'd been crying. "Come in," she said, her voice flat. She didn't hug me. We always hugged. She stepped aside, and I walked into the living room where everyone was waiting. Dylan sat on the couch, arms crossed. Olivia stood by the fireplace, looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Nathan leaned against the wall, his phone in his hand, probably ready to record whatever happened next. My father sat in his armchair, the one he'd claimed for 30 years, and he looked older than I'd ever seen him. "Sit down," my father said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat. Nobody offered me anything to drink. Nobody asked how I was doing. The living room felt like a courtroom, and I was already convicted in their eyes. "We need you to tell us the truth," my mother said, sitting down next to my father. "All of it. No more hiding." I took a deep breath and spoke slowly, deliberately, making eye contact with each of them. "I am telling you the truth. I have never met Ashley Whitmore. I have never harassed anyone. I have never had a restraining order filed against me. I found out about this document today, at the exact same time you did, when Nathan sent it to the group chat. This is identity theft. Someone is using my name and information to file false court documents, and I need to figure out who and why." Olivia laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was bitter and sharp. "Identity theft? Really? That's your story?" "It's not a story," I said. "It's what happened. I can prove where I was on every date mentioned in that petition. I have calendars, receipts, witnesses. I can prove this isn't me." Dylan leaned forward. "Dad's friend saw this at the courthouse. He said it looked legitimate. He said there were multiple filings, not just the restraining order. He said there's a whole case history." That hit me like a punch to the chest. Multiple filings, a case history. This wasn't just one fraudulent document. Someone had built an entire fake legal case around my identity. "What else did he say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What other filings?" My father pulled out his phone and started reading from what must have been a text message. "Restraining order petition filed December 19th. Emergency protective order filed December 22nd. Court hearing scheduled January 18th. Motion for contempt filed January 4th for violation of the protective order." He looked up at me. "You allegedly contacted her again after the protective order was issued. You're looking at potential criminal charges." I felt my world narrowing to a pinpoint. "When was I supposed to have contacted her?" "January 3rd, my father said. "According to the motion, you sent her 53 text messages and left 12 voicemails." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened my message history. "I didn't send anyone 53 texts on January 3rd. Look at my phone. Check my call logs. Check everything. I can prove I didn't do this." Olivia's voice cut through the room. "Then who did? Who would go through all this trouble to frame you? This doesn't just happen randomly." That was the question I didn't have an answer to, and we all knew it. Random identity theft didn't typically involve filing fake restraining orders. This was personal, targeted. Someone who had access to my information and wanted to destroy my life had used it to create a legal nightmare with my name at the center. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm going to find out. I'm going to hire a lawyer, contact the court, file a police report for identity theft, and prove that none of this is real." Nathan spoke for the first time. "And what if it is real? What if you did this and you're just trying to cover it up?" I looked at him directly. "Then I'm the best liar in the world, because I would have to be faking my entire personality, my entire life, everything anyone knows about me. Does that sound more likely than someone committing fraud?" The room went quiet. Nobody answered, but I could see the doubt in their eyes, the way they were weighing my words against the official court documents, trying to decide which version of reality to believe. My mother broke the silence. "We just want to help you," she said, but her voice was strained, uncertain. "If you're in trouble, if something happened that you're ashamed of, we can work through it. But you have to be honest with us." I stood up. The anger I'd been suppressing since the DMV parking lot finally broke through. "I am being honest with you. I have been honest with you my entire life. I have never lied to you about anything important, and I'm not starting now. Someone is framing me. Someone is destroying my reputation, and instead of helping me figure out who, you're all sitting here accusing me of being an abuser and a liar. So I'm going to leave now, and I'm going to handle this myself, because clearly I can't count on my own family to believe me." I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Dylan say, "Don't be dramatic." I turned around. "Dramatic? There are court documents with my name on them accusing me of domestic violence. If I don't figure this out, I could end up with a criminal record, lose my job, and have my entire life destroyed. That's not dramatic. That's reality." I left before anyone could respond. On my way to my car, my phone buzzed. The family group chat. My mother had written, "We love you, but we can't support you until you take responsibility for your actions." I opened the chat, typed, "I'm leaving this group," and hit send. Then I blocked them all. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. with my mind racing through everything I needed to do. First priority, find a lawyer who specialized in both criminal defense and identity theft. Second priority, file a police report documenting the fraud. Third priority, contact the court and request copies of all documents filed in the case. Fourth priority, figure out who Ashley Whitmore actually was and why someone was using her name to destroy me. I made coffee and started searching for attorneys. By 6 a.m., I had a list of 5 possibilities. By 7, I'd left voicemails with all of them. By 8, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, my phone, and a growing sense of dread as I realized how deep this went. I pulled up the court website again and searched for the case number. This time, I clicked on every available document. The restraining order petition was just the beginning. There was an emergency protective order that claimed I'd shown up at Ashley Whitmore's apartment building with a weapon. There was a police report attached to the filing. There was a witness statement from someone named David Park who claimed to have seen me threatening her. Every document looked official, every signature looked real, and every single word was a lie. My phone rang at 8:34 a.m., unknown number. I answered anyway. "Is this about the court case?" I asked before the caller could speak. "This is attorney Rebecca Thornton," a woman's voice said. "You left me a message about identity theft and false court filings. I have some time this afternoon if you want to come in and discuss your case." I could have kissed her. "Yes, absolutely. What time?" 3 o'clock. "I'll text you the address." She paused. "Bring everything you have. Documents, timeline, phone records, anything that can help establish your whereabouts on the dates in question. And don't talk to anyone else about this case without me present. Not the police, not the alleged victim, not your family. Nobody." I promised I wouldn't. When we hung up, I spent the next 6 hours building a comprehensive timeline of my life for the past year. Every work meeting, every soccer practice, every grocery store trip. I pulled bank statements showing card transactions with timestamps and locations. I downloaded my Google location history showing everywhere my phone had been. I gathered emails, calendar invites, text conversations, anything that could prove where I was and what I was doing on the dates mentioned in the court documents. By the time I drove to Attorney Thornton's office, I had a 3-inch binder full of evidence proving I was innocent. Rebecca Thornton's office was in a sleek high-rise downtown. She met me in the conference room, a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and an air of competence that immediately made me feel like I'd made the right choice. She reviewed my timeline in silence for 15 minutes, occasionally making notes. Then she looked up. "This is good. Very thorough. But I need you to understand something. In cases like this, the burden of proof isn't on the petitioner to prove you did it. The burden is on you to prove you didn't. And that's much harder." My stomach sank. Even with all this evidence? Even with all this evidence. Courts take domestic violence allegations seriously. Judges err on the side of caution. If there's any doubt, they'll grant the restraining order and leave it to you to appeal or disprove it later. She tapped the binder. "But this is a strong start. The question is, who did this and why?" I shook my head. I've been asking myself that for 24 hours. I don't have enemies. I don't have ex-girlfriends who hate me. I don't have angry former roommates or coworkers or anyone who'd want to destroy my life like this. Rebecca leaned back in her chair. "Let's approach this differently. Who has access to your personal information? Social security number, date of birth, address, phone number?" I thought about it. My employer, obviously. My bank, credit card companies, anyone I've filled out a background check for, which would be several jobs over the years. My family. The word hung in the air between us. My family. The people who'd already decided I was guilty before hearing my side. The people who had my information, knew my schedule, understood my routines well enough to fabricate a believable timeline. Rebecca noticed my expression change. "Tell me about your family," she said. So I did. I told her about the group chat, about the confrontation at my parents' house, about how quickly they'd turned on me. I told her about Nathan showing up with his phone ready to record, about Dylan's immediate skepticism, about my mother's tears, and my father's disappointed silence. I told her how none of them had asked for my side of the story before assuming the worst. Rebecca listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "I need you to consider something you might not want to hear," she said. "The level of detail in these court filings suggests whoever did this knows you very well. They know your address, your phone number, your daily patterns. They were able to create a narrative that's specific enough to be believable, but false enough to be unprovable. That's not random identity theft. That's someone with intimate knowledge of your life." The implication was clear. Someone close to me had done this. Someone in my family, or someone connected to my family. "But why?" I asked. "What would anyone gain from this?" Rebecca shrugged. "That's what we need to figure out. Money, revenge, jealousy, mental illness, custody battles, inheritance disputes. There are dozens of reasons people destroy each other using the legal system. But first, we need to handle the immediate crisis. The hearing is in 15 days. I'm going to file a motion to dismiss based on fraudulent filing. I'm going to request a full investigation into the identity of Ashley Whitmore, and I'm going to submit your evidence showing you couldn't have committed the alleged acts. But you need to prepare for the possibility that the judge might not dismiss it immediately. This could take months to resolve. Months. I thought about my job, my reputation, my security clearance that would be revoked the moment this became public. What do I do in the meantime? Document everything. Every interaction, every conversation, every text message. Don't contact anyone associated with this case. Don't try to investigate Ashley Whitmore yourself. And definitely don't reach out to your family until we understand their role in this. She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. I'll call you after I file the motion. Try not to panic. We're going to figure this out. I left Rebecca's office feeling simultaneously better and worse. Better because I had professional help. Worse because the scope of what I was facing had become clearer. Someone had weaponized the legal system against me, using my own identity as ammunition. And the most likely suspects were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I drove home through rush hour traffic, my mind spinning through possibilities. Could Dylan have done this? He'd always been competitive, always measuring himself against me. Could Olivia have orchestrated it? She'd been distant lately, distracted by something she wouldn't talk about. Could Nathan have been involved? He'd always been impulsive, prone to grudges. Or was it someone else entirely, someone I hadn't even considered? The questions consumed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed scrolling through my phone, looking at old photos from family gatherings, trying to spot some clue I'd missed. My phone buzzed at 11:49 p.m. with a text from an unknown number. Stop trying to find me. You'll only make it worse. I sat up, my heart hammering. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Rebecca immediately, then added a text. Just got this. What do I do? She responded 3 minutes later. Don't reply. Save everything. This is evidence. The next week crawled by in a fog of anxiety and investigation. Rebecca filed the motion to dismiss and requested documents from the court. I filed a police report for identity theft with the LAPD. The officer who took my report, Lieutenant James Kowalski, looked skeptical when I explained the situation, but he took detailed notes and promised to investigate. These cases are tricky, he said. Usually identity theft involves credit cards or loans, not court filings. This is sophisticated, personal. Someone went to a lot of trouble. He wasn't telling me anything I didn't already know. I asked him to check if Ashley Whitmore was a real person. I'll run the name, he said. But there are probably thousands of Ashley Whitmores in California. We need more information to narrow it down. I gave him the address listed in the court documents. He wrote it down and said he'd be in touch. 3 days later, he called. The address in the court filing doesn't exist, Lieutenant Kowalski said. It's a vacant lot. Has been for years. Whoever filed this used a fake address. My stomach dropped. So Ashley Whitmore isn't real? I didn't say that. I said the address is fake. There's an Ashley Whitmore registered to vote in Los Angeles County, but her address is completely different from the one in your documents. I reached out to her. She's never heard of you and has no idea why her name would be on court filings. Another dead end. Another layer of deception. Rebecca called me that afternoon with more news. I got the case file from the court. There's something you need to see. I drove to her office immediately. She had the documents spread across her conference table, each one marked with colored tabs. Look at the signatures, she said, pointing to the restraining order petition. I looked. The signature for Ashley Whitmore was neat, flowing, unmistakably feminine. Now look at this, Rebecca said, sliding another document toward me. It was a motion for contempt, the one claiming I'd violated the protective order. The signature was identical. Same person signed both? I asked. Not just that. Look at the filing timestamps. She pointed to the metadata. Both documents had been filed from the same IP address. I subpoenaed the court's electronic filing records. Both submissions came from the same computer, filed using the same login credentials for a registered attorney named Michael Landry. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who's Michael Landry? Rebecca pulled up a Bar Association profile on her laptop. He's a real attorney, practices family law in Beverly Hills. I called his office. He has no record of taking on a client named Ashley Whitmore. He says his login credentials were stolen 3 months ago, and he reported it to the Bar Association, but he didn't think to connect it to this case because he never received any notifications about filings in his name. Someone had stolen an attorney's credentials to file false court documents. This was escalating from identity theft to full-scale legal fraud. There's more, Rebecca said. She pulled out a police report attached to the emergency protective order filing. This report claims you showed up at Ashley Whitmore's apartment on December 22nd with a knife and threatened her life. According to the report, officers responded to a 911 call and found you fleeing the scene. They obtained your license plate number and issued a warrant. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. There's a warrant? For my arrest? Rebecca shook her head. No, that's the thing. I checked with LAPD. There's no warrant. There's no incident report matching this description. The report number in this document doesn't exist in their system. Someone fabricated a police report and attached it to the court filing. I couldn't breathe. Whoever was doing this had created an entire alternate reality where I was a violent criminal. They'd forged police reports, stolen attorney credentials, used a real person's name without their knowledge, and filed multiple fraudulent documents in court. The level of planning and execution required was staggering. "This is bigger than a personal grudge," I said. "This is criminal conspiracy. This is fraud on a massive scale." Rebecca nodded. "Which is why I'm recommending we take this to the FBI. This crosses state lines, involves federal computer crimes, and potentially intersects with identity theft statutes that fall under federal jurisdiction. Lieutenant Kowalski is good, but this is beyond local police." The FBI. I was going to have to explain to federal agents that my life had been hijacked by someone who'd built an elaborate legal fiction around my identity. The surrealism of it all was overwhelming. Rebecca made the call that afternoon. 2 days later, I was sitting in a federal building downtown, across from Special Agent Lisa Chen from the FBI's Los Angeles field office. Wait, I can't use the name Chen. Let me correct that. 2 days later, I was sitting in a federal building downtown, across from Special Agent Lisa Montgomery from the FBI's Los Angeles field office. She reviewed my case file with the same thorough attention Rebecca had shown, asking pointed questions about my timeline, my family, my work, my relationships. "This is one of the more sophisticated identity theft cases I've seen," Agent Montgomery said after 90 minutes of questioning. "The coordination required to pull this off suggests multiple people or someone with significant resources and legal knowledge." Rebecca leaned forward. "We believe the perpetrator has intimate knowledge of my client's personal information and daily routines. We suspect it's someone within his inner circle." Agent Montgomery made a note. "Have you had any contact with your family since this started?" I shook my head. "I left their group chat after they accused me without hearing my side. I haven't spoken to any of them in 9 days." "Good. Keep it that way. If someone in your family is involved, any contact could complicate the investigation." Agent Montgomery spent the next 2 weeks investigating. She subpoenaed the court's electronic filing system. She interviewed the real Ashley Whitmore, who confirmed she'd never met me and had no idea how her name ended up in court documents. She tracked the IP address used to file the documents to a coffee shop in Santa Monica. She pulled security footage from the coffee shop for the dates in question. And then, on a cold Monday morning 13 days before my scheduled court hearing, she called me. "We found something," she said. "Can you come to the field office?" I was there in 30 minutes. Agent Montgomery led me to a conference room where Rebecca was already waiting. On the screen at the front of the room was a frozen frame from security camera footage. The image showed someone sitting at a laptop in a coffee shop, their face partially visible. My blood ran cold. It was Olivia, my sister. Sitting at a corner table, her laptop open, filing fraudulent court documents using stolen attorney credentials, destroying my life one motion at a time. Agent Montgomery played the footage. I watched my sister spend 3 hours at that coffee shop, methodically filing documents, checking her phone between submissions, completely calm and focused as she systematically ruined me. The timestamp on the video matched the timestamp on the court filings exactly. "Why?" I asked. My voice sounded hollow, distant. "Why would she do this?" Agent Montgomery fast-forwarded the footage to a different date. Same coffee shop. This time, Olivia wasn't alone. Sitting across from her was a man I'd never seen before. They were clearly working together, reviewing documents on both their laptops, occasionally pointing at screens and nodding. "We're still identifying her accomplice," Agent Montgomery said, "but we have enough to bring your sister in for questioning." Rebecca put her hand on my arm. "I know this is devastating, but it answers the question of who had access to your information and why the details were so accurate. Your own sister." I felt numb. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover what I was feeling. This wasn't a stranger stealing my identity for financial gain. This was my sister, someone who'd known me my entire life, deliberately orchestrating my destruction. "What happens now?" I asked. Agent Montgomery's expression was professional but sympathetic. "We arrest her, we question her, we find out who her accomplice is and what motivated this, and we build a federal case against everyone involved." She paused. "I need to warn you, this is going to be public. When we make the arrest, your family will know. The court will know. This will be news." I nodded slowly. I didn't care anymore. Let it be news. Let everyone know what Olivia had done. The arrest happened 3 days later. I wasn't there, but Rebecca called me immediately afterward to tell me what had happened. Federal agents had shown up at Olivia's house at 6 in the morning. She'd tried to claim she didn't know what they were talking about, but when they showed her the security footage, she'd crumbled. She'd confessed to filing the fraudulent documents. She'd given up her accomplice, a man named David Park, who turned out to be her boyfriend. The same David Park who'd signed a witness statement claiming he'd seen me threatening Ashley Whitmore. Except he'd never witnessed anything, because none of it had happened. The entire case was a fabrication created by my sister and her boyfriend to frame me for domestic violence. But Agent Montgomery still didn't know why. Olivia wouldn't say. She'd lawyered up immediately and refused to answer questions about motive. David Park had done the same. The federal prosecutor was building charges: conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, filing false police reports, perjury, computer fraud, and half a dozen other counts that could add up to decades in prison. But I still didn't understand why my own sister had tried to destroy me. The answer came from an unexpected source. My brother Dylan called me 4 days after Olivia's arrest. I didn't want to answer. but curiosity won. "I need to talk to you," he said. His voice was different, shaken. "Mom and Dad are in denial. They think Olivia made a mistake. But I found something. Can I come over?" I told him yes. When he arrived an hour later, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He sat at my kitchen table and pulled out his phone. "I went through Olivia's house after the FBI finished searching it," he said. "I found these." He showed me screenshots of text messages between Olivia and David Park, dating back 8 months. I read them in silence, feeling sicker with each message. "I can't believe he got the promotion over you," David had written. "He doesn't deserve it." "I know," Olivia had replied. "He always gets everything. The perfect job, the perfect life. Everyone loves him. I'm so tired of being second." "Maybe it's time someone knocked him down a few pegs," David had suggested. The conversation went on for screens and screens. They'd started with small ideas, spreading rumors, sabotaging my work, but those ideas had evolved into something darker. "What if he had a criminal record?" Olivia had written. "What if everyone knew he wasn't as perfect as they think?" And David had responded, "I know someone who works in legal filing. I could probably get access to the system." I looked up at Dylan. My hands were shaking. She did this because she was jealous? Because I got a promotion? Dylan's face was grim. "It's worse than that. Keep reading." I scrolled through more messages. Olivia and David had planned everything methodically. They'd chosen Ashley Whitmore's name at random from voter registration records. They'd stolen Michael Landry's attorney credentials through a phishing scheme. They'd fabricated the police report using templates David found online. They'd created a timeline of alleged harassment based on my actual schedule, using my location data from family-shared apps to make sure they picked times when I'd be hard to alibi. They'd filed everything during hours when I was at work or asleep, using public Wi-Fi to avoid detection. The entire scheme had taken them months to plan and execute. And the motive? Pure, irrational jealousy over a job promotion I'd gotten 18 months ago. "There's more," Dylan said quietly. He showed me another message thread, this one between Olivia and our mother. I felt my heart stop as I read it. "Mom, I did something bad," Olivia had written the day after the arrest. "I know, sweetie," our mother had replied, "but we're going to fix this. We're going to say you were trying to protect someone. We're going to make them understand it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," Olivia had written. "I wanted him to suffer." "Don't say that," our mother had replied. "Don't ever say that again." My mother knew. She'd known since the arrest, and she was helping Olivia cover it up. The betrayal hit me in waves. First my sister, then my mother. How deep did this go? "I'm so sorry," Dylan said. "I should have believed you from the beginning. We all should have. But when I saw these messages, I realized—" He trailed off. "Realized what?" "Realized that you're the only one in this family who's actually honest. The rest of us are so busy protecting each other that we don't care about the truth anymore." I didn't know what to say to that. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Dylan stood up. "I'm going to testify for the prosecution," he said. "I'm going to give them these messages, and I'm going to tell them exactly what kind of person Olivia is." He paused at the door. "I know I can't make this right, but I want you to know I believe you, and I'm sorry I ever doubted you." After he left, I forwarded all the screenshots to Rebecca and Agent Montgomery. The messages would become central evidence in the federal case against Olivia and David Park. The preliminary hearing happened 2 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom with Rebecca on one side and Agent Montgomery on the other, watching as the federal prosecutor laid out the case against my sister. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage. Bank records showing Olivia had paid David Park $3,200 for his help. Email chains discussing the scheme. Text messages plotting my destruction. The fabricated documents themselves. Michael Landry, the attorney whose credentials had been stolen, testified about the phishing attack. Lieutenant Kowalski testified about the fake police report. The real Ashley Whitmore testified about how shocked she'd been to discover her name on court documents. Dylan testified about finding the messages on Olivia's phone. And through it all, Olivia sat at the defense table looking small and defiant, her attorney whispering in her ear. When the judge asked if she wanted to make a statement, she declined. The judge set a trial date for 3 months away and denied bail. Olivia would remain in federal custody until then. My parents sat in the back of the courtroom, both of them crying. They didn't look at me. They didn't approach me. They left as soon as the hearing ended. I never spoke to them again. The trial itself was almost anticlimactic. The evidence was so strong that Olivia's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the federal prosecutor refused. She wanted the maximum sentence. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Olivia showed no emotion when the verdict was read. David Park, who'd taken a plea deal and testified against her, got 15 years. Olivia got 23. The judge, an older woman who'd clearly seen too many cases like this, didn't mince words during sentencing. "You used your intimate knowledge of your brother's life to weaponize the legal system against him," she said. "You filed false police reports. You committed perjury. You stole an attorney's credentials. You endangered an innocent person's career, reputation, and freedom because you were jealous of his success. This court has no sympathy for you." Olivia was led away in handcuffs. My mother screamed from the gallery. My father sat motionless, staring at nothing. I felt nothing. The whole thing felt like it had happened to someone else. In the weeks after the trial, I tried to rebuild my life. The restraining order case against me was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it could never be refiled. My employer was understanding once I explained the situation and provided the court documents proving my innocence. My security clearance was reinstated. I started therapy to process the trauma of having my own sister try to destroy me. The therapist, Dr. Nina Alvarez, told me it was okay to grieve the family I'd thought I had. "Betrayal trauma is real," she said during one session, "especially when it comes from people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to cut them out of your life. You don't owe them forgiveness just because they're family." I took her advice. I blocked my parents' numbers. I moved to a new apartment so they couldn't show up unannounced. I changed my phone number. I built a new life with new friends who didn't share DNA with me. Dylan was the only family member I stayed in contact with. He'd proven himself when it mattered, and I appreciated that. We met for coffee every few weeks, carefully avoiding talking about our parents or Olivia. 6 months after the trial, I got a letter from Olivia. It was forwarded through Rebecca's office because I'd made sure Olivia didn't have my new address. Rebecca called me before sending it. "You don't have to read this," she said. "You don't owe her anything." But I was curious. I told her to send it. The letter arrived 3 days later. I opened it carefully, half expecting more lies, more manipulation. But it was different. Olivia had written 5 pages in cramped handwriting, and for the first time, she'd told the truth. "I know you'll probably never read this," the letter started, "and I know you have no reason to believe anything I say, but I need you to know that what I did wasn't really about the promotion. It was about everything. Every time Mom talked about how proud she was of you, every time Dad compared me to you and I came up short, every time someone asked me if I was as smart as my brother, as successful as my brother, as good as my brother. I spent my whole life being measured against you, and I always lost. So I wanted you to lose too. I wanted you to know what it felt like to have everyone doubt you, to have your own family turn against you, to feel like everything you'd built could collapse at any moment. I wanted you to suffer the way I'd been suffering my whole life." The letter went on. But here's what I realized too late. You weren't the enemy. You never were. You were just living your life, doing your best, same as anyone. The real problem was me. I was so consumed by jealousy and resentment that I convinced myself you deserved to be punished for being successful. I convinced myself that destroying you would make me feel better. I was wrong. It didn't make me feel better. It didn't make me feel anything except empty. And now I'm going to spend the next 20 years in prison because I couldn't handle the fact that my little brother was better at life than I was. She ended with, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I wanted you to know the truth, since I stole so much from you by lying. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. Nothing will ever be enough. But I'm sorry anyway." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But I couldn't. The words haunted me. Not because I felt bad for Olivia, but because I realized how much damage jealousy could do when it festered unchecked. My sister had spent years comparing herself to me, feeling inferior, building resentment, until it exploded into a criminal conspiracy that destroyed both our lives. And our parents had enabled it, maybe even encouraged it, by constantly comparing us, by making love conditional on achievement. A year after the trial, I was doing better. I'd been promoted again at work. I'd started dating someone new, a woman named Grace who worked in marketing and had no connection to my past. I'd coached my soccer team to a regional championship. I'd even started writing about my experience, thinking maybe it could help other people who'd been betrayed by their families understand they weren't alone. Dylan called me one evening and asked if I wanted to meet for dinner. We went to our usual spot, a small Italian restaurant where nobody knew us or our history. Over pasta, he told me our mother had been calling him constantly, begging for my new contact information, insisting she needed to apologize. "I didn't give it to her," Dylan said quickly. "I just wanted you to know she's asking." I thought about it for a moment. Tell her I don't want her apology. Tell her I don't want anything from her. She chose her side when she tried to help Olivia cover up what she'd done. That's all I need to know about who she is. Dylan nodded. He didn't argue. He understood. We finished dinner and talked about other things. His new job, my relationship with Grace, upcoming soccer season. Normal things. Safe things. Things that had nothing to do with betrayal or court documents or federal prison. 2 years after the trial, I finally felt like I'd moved on. I'd built a life I was proud of. I had people who loved me for who I was, not because we shared genetics. I'd learned that family isn't always the people you're born with. Sometimes it's the people you choose. Grace and I got engaged on a beach in San Diego, just the 2 of us and a photographer we'd hired. No family drama, no complicated dynamics. Just 2 people who'd chosen each other, building something new. When we sent out wedding invitations, Dylan was the only person from my biological family who got one. I didn't send one to my parents. I didn't send one to any aunts, uncles or cousins who'd sided with Olivia or stayed silent when I'd needed them. And I didn't feel guilty about it. I'd learned the hard way that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, some broken trusts too shattered to repair. Olivia had taught me that. My parents had reinforced it, and I'd accepted it. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Some relationships aren't meant to survive. Some families aren't meant to stay together. And that's okay. The wedding was small and perfect. Grace's family embraced me with the kind of unconditional warmth my own family had never shown. Dylan stood up as my best man and gave a speech about second chances and chosen family that made half the guests cry. We danced until midnight and left for our honeymoon in Italy the next morning. On the plane, Grace asked me if I ever regretted cutting my family out of my life. I thought about it honestly before answering. No, I said. I regret that they became people I needed to cut out. I regret that my sister hated me enough to try to destroy me. I regret that my parents cared more about protecting her than supporting me. But I don't regret the choice I made. Some people earn your loyalty and love. Others forfeit it through their actions. Olivia forfeited hers. So did my parents. And I'm okay with that. Grace squeezed my hand. Good, she said. Because you deserve better than people who would do that to you. She was right. I did deserve better. And for the first time in years, I had it. Not because of the family I was born into, but despite them. I'd built a new life on my own terms, with people who valued honesty and loyalty and love without conditions. That was enough. 3 years after the trial, I got a message on LinkedIn from someone claiming to be a reporter. They wanted to interview me about my experience with family-initiated identity theft for a documentary about legal system abuse. I declined. My story was mine, not content for someone else's project. But the request made me realize how rare my situation was. Most people who experience identity theft deal with stolen credit cards or fraudulent loans. Very few have their own family members weaponize the court system against them. Even fewer have the resources, evidence, and determination to fight back and win. I'd been lucky in ways I was only beginning to appreciate. Lucky that I'd kept meticulous records. Lucky that I'd found Rebecca Thornton. Lucky that Agent Montgomery had taken my case seriously. Lucky that Dylan had found those text messages. Without any of those elements, I could have ended up with a criminal record, lost my job, destroyed my reputation, all because my sister couldn't handle her jealousy. The thought still made me sick sometimes. How close I'd come to losing everything because of someone else's lies. Last month, I got a notification that Olivia had filed an appeal. I wasn't worried. The evidence against her was ironclad. The appeal would fail, just like everything else she'd tried to do to escape responsibility for her actions. Rebecca called to confirm. It's a Hail Mary, she said. Her new attorney is arguing ineffective counsel at trial, but there's no merit to it. The conviction will stand. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't tell Grace about the appeal. There was no point in bringing old stress into our current happiness. We'd just found out she was pregnant with our first child, a daughter we'd already decided to name Luna. I wanted to focus on the future, not the past. Olivia would spend the next 20 years in federal prison regardless of what legal maneuvers she attempted. That was her consequence to bear, not mine. My consequence was different. I'd lost the family I'd grown up with, but I'd gained clarity about what family really meant. It wasn't shared DNA or childhood memories. It was trust, loyalty, support, and unconditional love. Grace gave me that. Dylan had proven he could give me that. Luna would grow up knowing that. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.